This is NewsVerse, bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Today, we focus on the escalating situation in the Gaza Strip, where Israeli airstrikes have resulted in significant casualties and growing tensions. In the early hours of March 18, 2025, Israel launched a series of intense airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, targeting key locations, including Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. The strikes, which lasted several hours, have caused widespread devastation, leaving entire neighborhoods in ruins. According to Palestinian medical officials, the airstrikes have killed more than 300 people, including children, with over 100 others severely wounded. Hospitals, already operating beyond capacity, are struggling to treat the growing number of casualties. Medical workers on the ground describe a desperate situation, with shortages of critical supplies such as antibiotics, anesthesia, and blood for transfusions. Eyewitnesses report scenes of chaos and destruction, with families frantically searching for loved ones beneath the rubble. One survivor in Gaza City described how his entire neighborhood was flattened in seconds, leaving dozens trapped under collapsed buildings. Israel's government has defended the airstrikes, stating that they were a direct response to Hamas's refusal to release hostages and its rejection of a proposed ceasefire agreement. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated that Israel will continue its military operations until Hamas is neutralized and security is restored. The Israeli Defense Forces claim they specifically targeted Hamas infrastructure, weapons storage sites, and command centers, insisting that all measures were taken to avoid civilian casualties. However, Palestinian officials and international human rights organizations argue that the scale of destruction suggests otherwise. They accuse Israel of indiscriminate bombing, pointing to the high number of civilian casualties and the targeting of densely populated areas. Hamas, in turn, has vowed to retaliate, calling the airstrikes an act of aggression that further inflames the conflict. The international community has reacted with growing alarm. The United Nations has urgently called for an immediate ceasefire, warning that continued escalation could lead to a full-scale humanitarian disaster. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres stated, "Civilians must never be the target of military operations. Both sides must return to negotiations to prevent further suffering." In Washington, the U.S. State Department expressed deep concern over the rising death toll, urging restraint from all parties involved. The Biden administration has reiterated its support for Israel's right to defend itself, but has also emphasized the need to minimize civilian casualties and seek a diplomatic solution. Meanwhile, protests have erupted in major cities worldwide, including London, Paris, and New York, as demonstrators demand an end to the violence. Many protesters are calling on their governments to take stronger action, with some urging economic sanctions or diplomatic pressure to force a ceasefire. Neighboring countries, including Egypt and Jordan, have intensified their mediation efforts, working behind the scenes to broker a temporary truce. However, with both Israel and Hamas refusing to back down, the likelihood of an immediate resolution